My beloved child, pause for a second, listen carefully, because what reaches you now was not meant to arrive randomly. There is a reason this moment found you, and there is a reason these words feel heavier than usual. Imagine a quiet signal cutting through noise, not loud, not dramatic, but precise. That is how this message begins. Not with instructions, with awareness. Elon Musk once said that the future does not announce itself loudly, it whispers to those who are paying attention. And right now, this whisper is directed at you. Think about how many times you believed life was happening to you instead of through you. How often you waited for permission, for clarity, for the perfect signal. But here is the first shift. The people who change their lives are not waiting for certainty. They are acting from curiosity, from willingness, from the courage to move before the full picture appears. This is not about wealth or fame or technology. It is about orientation, about how you aim your mind each morning. If you feel unsettled listening to this, that is not discomfort, it is recognition. There is a pattern hidden in every breakthrough. Before momentum appears, confusion shows up first. Before clarity, friction. Before direction, silence. Most people quit in the silence. Visionaries lean into it. And here is the message beneath the message. Your current uncertainty is not a signal to stop. It is proof that you are close to a new level of understanding. Stay with this thought. Let it settle. Because in a few moments, everything begins to connect. You may have noticed something recently. Time feels different. Days move faster, distractions feel louder, yet something inside you feels impatient in a new way. Not anxious. Activated. That is not coincidence. The future rewards those who think in systems, not shortcuts. Those who ask better questions, not faster answers. The real upgrade begins when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What kind of person must I become for this next chapter?" That question alone changes the trajectory. Now, before you drift, hear this clearly. This is the turning point most people miss. Progress does not require permission. It requires alignment. When your thoughts, habits, and identity start pointing in the same direction, outcomes change naturally. This is why some people seem lucky. They are not. They are aligned. And alignment is a skill you can build. In the next stretch of this message, that skill becomes visible. Take a breath, stay a little longer, because now the signal sharpens. My beloved child, here is where the message becomes personal. The future is not built by reacting, it is built by designing. Elon Musk often speaks about first principles, breaking things down to what truly matters, then rebuilding from truth instead of assumption. Apply that to your own life. Strip away what you inherited, what you were told to want, what you copied without realizing it. What remains is powerful. What remains is yours. Most people live inside scripts they never wrote. Wake up, scroll, compare, repeat. But the moment you step outside that loop, something changes. You stop chasing outcomes and start building capacity. You stop fearing failure and start collecting data. This is the mindset shift that rewires everything. Life stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like an experiment. Experiments are exciting. They mean progress is inevitable. If this perspective resonates, that is not accidental. It means you are already thinking differently than you were before this video began. And if you feel this insight could help someone else recalibrate their direction, quietly share it with them. If you want to stay connected to ideas like this, ideas that stretch your thinking and sharpen your focus, you already know what to do. No rush, just awareness. Now consider this. What if the version of you 5 years from now is watching this exact moment, relieved that you did not scroll away? Relieved that you stayed long enough to hear the subtle truth. that your potential is not hidden, it is unused. The future does not belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the clearest thinker, to the person who can sit with complexity without escaping into distraction. Here is the deeper layer of the message. You do not need to become someone else. You need to remove what is not you. Distraction, doubt borrowed from others, old narratives that no longer fit. When those fall away, action becomes obvious, not forced, natural. You may not see the entire path yet, but you are not meant to. You are meant to see the next step, and clarity arrives only after movement. Before you go anywhere, hold on to this line. The future is built by those who prepare for it mentally before it arrives physically. You are doing that right now. Stay with me, because the final stretch changes how you see everything that came before. My beloved child, this is where the message completes its arc. The most powerful realization is not about success, it is about responsibility. Once you see that your life is shaped by choices repeated daily, you cannot unsee it. And that awareness is freedom. It means you are no longer waiting to be saved by timing, luck, or approval. You are participating consciously. Elon Musk once hinted that the biggest risk is not failure, it is living too cautiously. Not because caution is wrong, but because unused potential quietly becomes regret. This is not a warning. It is an invitation to think longer term, to invest in skills that compound, to protect your attention as if it were your most valuable asset, because it is. Notice how different you feel compared to the beginning of this message. Calmer, sharper, more awake. That shift is not temporary unless you ignore it. The future rewards those who act on insight while it is still fresh. Not impulsively, intentionally. One small decision, repeated, changes the entire equation. Before this message fades into the rest of your day, ask yourself one honest question. What would change if you truly believed your life was not behind schedule, but unfolding exactly when it needs to? Sit with that. Let it reframe everything you thought was late, lost, or uncertain. You were not meant to hear noise today. You were meant to hear clarity. And now that you have, the next move is yours. Wait, before you take another breath, something just shifted. You felt it, didn't you? A quiet pullback to the question left open before, the idea that your life is not late, not broken, just unfolding on a different clock. Hold that thought, because this section reveals why that feeling has been following you. Here is the reveal most people miss. Progress is not linear. It arrives in compressions. Long periods where nothing seems to move, followed by sudden acceleration. The mind interprets the quiet as failure. Visionaries interpret it as loading time. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because what you've been sensing lately is not impatience, it is readiness. Think about how technology advances. Years of invisible groundwork, then one release that changes behavior overnight. Human lives follow the same pattern. You don't level up gradually, you reframe suddenly. And when that reframe lands, old problems lose their weight. This is why your past doubts feel thinner now. They are losing relevance. Stay with this, because hope is rising for a reason. Here comes the turning point. The future doesn't respond to effort alone. It responds to clarity. When your intention sharpens, resistance fades. That is why people who appear calm often move faster than those who rush. Calm is not passivity. It is alignment. And alignment creates momentum without friction. This moment may explain what you've been sensing every time distractions stopped satisfying you. Now, a surprising insight. You don't need more information. You need a different relationship with uncertainty. The most valuable skill in the next decade is the ability to act while outcomes are still unclear. Those who wait for guarantees fall behind quietly. Those who move with curiosity build leverage. You already know which group you're leaning toward, otherwise you wouldn't still be here. Notice the emotional wave shifting again. Tension gives way to relief. Relief opens the door to revelation. Here it is. Your attention is your currency. Where you place it compounds into identity. Identity compounds into destiny. This is not philosophy. It's mechanics. You become what you repeatedly engage with. And today, you chose awareness over noise. If this message resonates, you know where to find the next one. Not as a command, just a recognition that alignment attracts alignment. Now let the mystery deepen. What if the reason your old goals stopped motivating you is because they were placeholders? Temporary targets meant to keep you moving until something truer appeared. That truth is closer than you think. You'll understand at the end, but for now, consider this. The future favors builders of systems, not seekers of approval. Another micro reveal unfolds here. Confidence is not believing you will succeed. Confidence is trusting yourself to adapt if you don't. That distinction changes everything. Fear dissolves when adaptability becomes your anchor. And suddenly, decisions feel lighter, clearer, almost obvious. This is the calm before acceleration. Before you drift, lock this insight in place. You are not being prepared for a single opportunity. You are being prepared for a pattern of opportunities. A new way of seeing time, effort, and value. Once that pattern clicks, life stops feeling reactive and starts feeling responsive. Stay present for this last turn. The mystery isn't what comes next, it's who you become when it arrives. And there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this section most of all, because what opens now answers the tension left hanging before. That missing truth you felt circling your thoughts was never outside you. It was waiting for the right framing. Hold steady, because this moment may explain what you've been sensing every time silence felt louder than noise. Recall where we paused. The idea that opportunities arrive as patterns, not events. Here is the first reveal. Patterns respond to preparation, not luck. When preparation meets timing, results feel sudden. From the outside, it looks like overnight success. From the inside, it feels inevitable. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because inevitability is built long before it's visible. Consider how the future actually forms. Not as a straight line, but as a series of bets placed with incomplete information. The mistake most people make is waiting for certainty before committing. Visionaries commit to learning curves. They choose momentum over comfort. And once momentum exists, clarity follows. This is why your recent restlessness wasn't dissatisfaction. It was your instincts asking for a larger playing field. Here comes a turning point. The most valuable asset you own is not time or money or talent. It is your ability to decide without self-betrayal. Every time you override your own intuition to please fear, you weaken that asset. Every time you act in alignment, even imperfectly, you strengthen it. This is not motivational language. It's structural. Decision integrity compounds. Notice the emotional shift again. Tension softens into possibility. Possibility turns into quiet confidence. That confidence is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It feels like steadiness. Like knowing you can handle what's next, even if you can't predict it. This is the mindset that changes trajectories. Another micro reveal surfaces here. The future doesn't reward intensity alone. It rewards consistency of direction. Small actions, repeated with intention, outperform dramatic moves fueled by emotion. This is why sustainable success feels almost boring from the inside. Calm focus beats constant excitement. And if you've been craving simplicity lately, that's not withdrawal, it's Evolution. Stay with this thought. You'll understand at the end why your attention has been pulling away from chaos and toward depth. The world is accelerating, but clarity still belongs to those who slow their thinking just enough to choose well. Speed without direction multiplies mistakes. Direction without speed still wins. Now let the mystery deepen again. What if the reason this message feels personal is because it mirrors a decision already forming inside you? Not a drastic leap, a subtle shift, a choice to take responsibility for the long arc of your life instead of reacting to daily noise. That choice changes how you see setbacks. They stop looking like obstacles and start looking like feedback. Here is the revelation that reframes everything. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to build capacity. Outcomes fluctuate. Capacity compounds. Skills, resilience, perspective, these travel with you into every future scenario. Once you see life this way, pressure lifts. You stop trying to prove yourself and start preparing yourself. Before this part closes, anchor this final insight. The future is shaped by those who can hold paradox, confidence without arrogance, humility without hesitation, patience without passivity. That balance is rare, and rarity creates value. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Hold on, before the thought passes, notice how quiet everything feels right now. That silence is not empty. It's focused. It's the space where the final layer settles. You remember the missing truth we paused on, the idea that capacity matters more than outcomes. This part reveals why that insight changes how you see your entire life. Here is the recall that reopens the mystery. You are not chasing a single breakthrough. You are becoming someone for whom breakthroughs are normal. That distinction sounds subtle, but it rearranges your priorities instantly. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because normal is created through repetition, not intensity. The first reveal lands here. The future belongs to those who think in decades while acting in days. Long vision, short execution. When those two align, pressure dissolves. You stop needing immediate validation because you are anchored to direction. This is why some people stay calm while others panic. Calm is not ignorance. Calm is context. Now feel the emotional wave shift. There's a brief tension, because responsibility always carries weight. But notice what follows it. Hope. The kind that feels grounded, not wishful. Because once you accept that your daily choices are shaping a much larger arc, effort feels meaningful again. Even small steps feel powerful. Here comes the revelation you weren't expecting. Motivation is unreliable. Systems are not. People wait to feel ready. Visionaries build structures that make readiness irrelevant. Habits, environments, defaults. When your system is strong, progress happens even on low-energy days. This is how momentum survives reality. This moment may explain what you've been sensing lately, that desire to simplify, to cut away excess, to protect your focus. That is not withdrawal from ambition. It is refinement. The higher the level you move toward, the fewer distractions you can afford. Focus becomes sacred. Attention becomes intentional. Another reveal unfolds. The most underestimated skill of the future is learning how to learn. Not hoarding information, but updating beliefs quickly. Letting go of what worked before when it no longer fits. This flexibility is not weakness. It is strength disguised as humility. And humility scales. Stay present. You'll understand at the end why this message keeps circling back to awareness. Awareness precedes choice. Choice precedes direction. Direction compounds into destiny. This chain never breaks. It only strengthens or weakens depending on how consciously you live it. Now comes the gentle engagement moment, right here, naturally. If this message resonates, you know where to find the next one. Not because you're told to, but because alignment recognizes itself. Let the mystery return for a second. What if the biggest shift ahead of you is not external at all? What if it's the quiet decision to trust your own judgment more consistently? To stop outsourcing certainty to noise. To move forward without needing everyone to understand. That decision alone changes how the world responds to you. Here is the final micro reveal of this part. Freedom is not the absence of constraints. It is choosing the constraints that move you forward. Discipline is not restriction. It is direction with commitment. Once you see discipline this way, resistance fades. Action feels clean, almost inevitable. Before this part closes, anchor this truth. You are not behind. You are calibrating. And calibration always happens just before acceleration. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Before your mind rushes ahead, stay right here, because this is the moment where everything tightens into focus. What you felt at the end of the last part, the sense that acceleration is close, that wasn't imagination. It was recognition. You were sensing alignment locking into place. Recall the question that lingered. If you are not behind, if you are calibrating, then what exactly are you calibrating for? Here is the first reveal. You are not preparing for a single version of the future. You are preparing to stay effective no matter how fast the future shifts. That distinction changes how you measure progress. Most people try to predict what's coming. Visionaries build adaptability instead. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because adaptability is the only advantage that survives every change. Jobs change, tools change, markets change, but the ability to learn, decide, and move with clarity remains timeless. Feel the tension rise slightly here, because this insight removes excuses. If adaptability is the goal, then waiting for perfect conditions makes no sense. Perfect conditions never arrive. Momentum does. And momentum favors those who start before they feel fully ready. This moment may explain what you've been sensing when hesitation felt heavier than action. Here comes a turning point that reframes effort. Hard work is not the goal. Leverage is. Doing more is not as powerful as doing what compounds. Skills that stack. Relationships built on trust. Thinking that scales. When leverage enters the picture, effort multiplies instead of exhausts. This is why some people seem to move faster with less strain. They chose leverage early. Let the emotional wave soften now. Hope returns, but this time it's practical, grounded, because leverage is learnable. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to identify the few inputs that change multiple outputs. One habit that improves focus. One skill that increases optionality. One decision that removes friction. Another micro reveal unfolds here. The future rewards those who can sit with discomfort without immediately numbing it. Discomfort is often the signal that growth is near. Avoiding it delays progress. Listening to it sharpens direction. This is why comfort zones shrink opportunity, while curiosity expands it. Stay present. You'll understand at the end why this message keeps circling back to choice. Choice is the only place where power actually lives. Not in circumstances, not in background, not in timing. In choice, repeated consistently. Now let the mystery deepen again. What if the reason this message feels different from others is because it's not asking you to believe something new, but to trust what you already know? That quiet inner sense that your life is capable of more coherence, more intention, more depth. That sense has been patient with you. It hasn't left. Here is the revelation that ties everything together so far. The real message is not about becoming extraordinary. It's about becoming precise. precise with attention, precise with energy, precise with values. When precision increases, waste decreases. And when waste disappears, momentum feels effortless. Notice how the narrative has shifted. Fear never entered. Urgency softened into clarity. Mystery turned into direction. That progression mirrors how real transformation happens. Not in chaos, in awareness. Before this part closes, anchor this final insight. The future does not demand that you rush. It asks that you align. Once alignment is real, speed takes care of itself. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Listen closely. Right before clarity locks in, the mind tries to rush ahead. Don't. Stay here. Because what opens now explains why alignment suddenly feels stronger than effort. You remember the unanswered thread, the truth still missing. This part brings it into view, but gently, the way real understanding arrives. Recall where we paused. Precision creates momentum. Alignment creates speed. Here is the first reveal. Alignment is not something you find. It's something you remove obstacles from. When noise fades, direction becomes obvious. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because the struggle you felt wasn't resistance, it was interference. Most people believe they need more drive. They don't. They need fewer contradictions. Saying one thing, wanting another. Acting one way, thinking another. Energy leaks through misalignment. Power concentrates through coherence. This moment may explain what you've been sensing whenever simplicity suddenly felt more attractive than ambition. Feel the tension rise briefly here. Because coherence demands honesty. You can't align without admitting what no longer fits. Old goals, old identities, old narratives that once protected you but now slow you down. Letting go feels risky, until you notice the relief that follows. That relief is not emptiness. It's space. Here comes the turning point. The future does not reward those who optimize the past. It rewards those who design forward. That means releasing attachment to who you were supposed to be. Growth is not betrayal of your past self. It is fulfillment of their intention. They were trying to reach this version of you all along. Hope rises here, not dramatic, but steady. Because once you stop defending outdated versions of yourself, energy returns. Decisions feel cleaner. The internal debate quiets. You stop negotiating with doubt and start moving with intent. This is the calm confidence you've been approaching piece by piece. Another micro reveal unfolds. Time feels scarce only when attention is scattered. When attention converges, time expands. Not literally, but experientially. Days feel fuller. Progress feels tangible. You stop asking where the time went and start noticing what you built with it. This shift alone changes how you experience life. Stay with this. You'll understand at the end why this message keeps narrowing instead of expanding. Depth creates leverage. Focus multiplies impact. The future does not need you everywhere. It needs you effective somewhere. Now let the mystery deepen again. What if the real message was never about becoming more, but about becoming less divided? Less pulled in competing directions. Less reactive. Less diluted. That kind of simplification is not reduction. It's refinement. And refinement unlocks speed without force. Here is the revelation that settles everything so far. Trust is the final component of alignment. Not blind belief, but earned trust in your ability to adjust, learn, and recover. When you trust that process, fear loses its authority. You move forward without needing guarantees. That is how builders think. That is how futures are shaped. Notice how your breathing feels now. Slower, more grounded. That's not coincidence. Understanding integrates into the body before it becomes action. You are already recalibrating. Before this part closes, hold this insight steady. You don't need to control the entire path. You need to choose the direction, and keep choosing it when distractions try to pull you sideways. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Stay right here. Before your mind labels this as familiar, notice what just changed inside you. There's a stillness now. A sense that the pieces are no longer scattered. That feeling is the recall. You remember the missing truth we've been circling, the idea that alignment, trust, and focus are converging into something usable. This is where it becomes real. Here is the first reveal. Transformation does not arrive as a single realization. It arrives as a quiet reordering of priorities. One day, what used to feel urgent loses importance. What used to feel distant suddenly feels necessary. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because this reordering has already begun in you. Most people think change happens when circumstances shift. Visionaries know it happens when standards shift. What you tolerate, what you repeat, what you say yes to without thinking. Standards shape behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. This moment may explain what you've been sensing when certain habits no longer fit and certain conversations feel misaligned. Feel the tension rise slightly here, because standards require choice. And choice implies responsibility. But notice how quickly that tension turns into relief. Because once standards are clear, decisions become easier. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop explaining yourself to noise. Energy returns the moment clarity replaces confusion. Here comes the turning point. The future is not built by intensity bursts. It is built by rhythm, sustainable pace, consistent direction, recovery built into effort. This is why burnout is not a sign of ambition, it's a sign of misalignment. When purpose and process match, effort becomes energizing instead of draining. Another micro reveal surfaces now. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That truth sounds simple, but it changes everything. Systems decide what happens on your worst days, not your best ones. And once your systems are aligned with who you are becoming, progress continues quietly, even when motivation fades. Stay with this. You'll understand at the end why the message feels less dramatic and more grounded now. Grounded insight lasts. Drama fades. The future belongs to those who can think clearly under pressure and calmly under opportunity. Hope deepens here, not as excitement, but as confidence. Because confidence is not believing everything will work out. It's knowing you will respond well no matter what unfolds. That kind of confidence cannot be taken from you. It's built, and you've been building it throughout this message. Now let the mystery return. What if the reason this message feels timely is because a decision is approaching that will define your next chapter? Not loudly, not urgently, quietly. A decision about what you will prioritize when no one is watching. About how you will treat your attention, your time, your inner dialogue. Here is the revelation that reframes the entire journey so far. The real message is not about success in the external world. It's about sovereignty in the internal one. When you govern your inner world with clarity and intention, the outer world responds predictably. Not instantly, but inevitably. Notice how the emotional wave settles into calm focus. This is not the end of the message. It's the preparation for the final insight. Because once sovereignty is established, a new question appears. Not, can I, but, what deserves my commitment? Hold that question gently. Let it follow you into the next moment. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Before you analyze what comes next, pause, because this is the moment where insight stops being abstract and starts becoming personal. You felt the question forming at the end of the last part. What deserves your commitment? That question wasn't rhetorical. It was an invitation. Recall the stillness we arrived at, the sense of internal sovereignty, of choosing deliberately instead of reacting automatically. Here is the first reveal. Commitment is not about intensity. It's about clarity sustained over time. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because clarity simplifies choices that once felt overwhelming. Most people commit to outcomes. Visionaries commit to directions. Outcomes fluctuate. Directions compound. When direction is clear, temporary setbacks stop feeling like detours and start looking like adjustments. This moment may explain what you've been sensing whenever frustration quickly turned into curiosity instead of discouragement. Feel the tension rise briefly here, because commitment asks something of you. It asks you to narrow, to say no with confidence, to stop keeping doors open that dilute focus. But notice what follows that tension. Relief. Because energy returns the moment indecision ends. Focus doesn't trap you. It frees you. Here comes the turning point. The future does not reward those who chase every opportunity. It rewards those who recognize the right one and stay with it long enough for depth to form. Depth creates leverage. Leverage creates impact. This is why mastery feels slower at the start and unstoppable later. Another micro reveal unfolds now. You don't need to know how everything will work. You need to know why it's worth continuing when progress feels invisible. Purpose is not a feeling. It's a reference point. When purpose is clear, motivation becomes optional. Movement continues regardless. Stay with this. You'll understand at the end why the message keeps returning to long arcs instead of quick wins. Quick wins satisfy the ego. Long arcs transform identity. And identity is the only thing that truly carries forward. Hope deepens here, but it's quiet, practical. Because once commitment is chosen, anxiety loses its grip. You stop scanning for alternatives. You stop guessing every step. Attention consolidates. Progress becomes measurable. Even rest feels earned instead of guilty. Now let the mystery return gently. What if the commitment forming inside you is not something new, but something you've postponed acknowledging? A direction that kept resurfacing in different forms. A pull that never fully disappeared. That persistence was not coincidence. It was alignment waiting for permission. Here is the revelation that reframes everything once more. The most powerful commitment you can make is not to a goal, but to a standard of thinking, clear reasoning, honest self-assessment, willingness to update beliefs. When your thinking is disciplined, your actions naturally follow. Notice how the emotional wave settles again. Calm focus replaces urgency. That is the signal of integration. Understanding is no longer something you're chasing. It's something you're embodying. Before this part closes, anchor this final insight. Commitment is not locking yourself into a future. It's choosing a direction and trusting your ability to adjust along the way. Flexibility within focus. Stability without rigidity. That balance is rare and powerful. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Wait. Before your thoughts settle, feel that quiet pressure building again. That's not confusion. It's proximity. You're close to the final layer of understanding, and your mind knows it. Recall where we left off. The idea that commitment is a direction, not a prison. This part reveals why that distinction changes how you experience risk, choice, and momentum. Here is the first reveal. Risk is not what most people think it is. Risk is not trying and failing. Risk is drifting without intention. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because once direction is chosen, uncertainty stops being threatening and starts being informative. Every signal becomes usable. Most people try to eliminate uncertainty. Visionaries learn to read it. They treat uncertainty like data, not danger. When something doesn't work, it's not a verdict, it's feedback. This moment may explain what you've been sensing when mistakes stopped feeling heavy and started feeling instructive. Feel the tension rise here, just briefly, because responsibility returns with clarity. Once you see that feedback is always available, excuses lose their comfort. But notice what follows immediately. Hope. Because feedback means progress is possible from any position. You are never stuck. You are always learning or repeating. Here comes the turning point. The future is shaped by those who can hold a long-term vision while making short-term adjustments without ego. Ego resists correction. Vision welcomes it. This is why adaptability outpaces stubbornness every time. Progress belongs to those who can change their mind without losing their direction. Another micro-reveal surfaces now. Momentum is not speed, it's continuity. Moving forward imperfectly beats waiting perfectly. When continuity is present, even small actions accumulate into something unmistakable. This is why your recent steps, however modest they felt, carried more weight than you realized. Stay with this. You'll understand at the end why the message keeps emphasizing process over outcome. Outcomes end. Processes evolve. When your process is sound, outcomes become byproducts instead of obsessions. Pressure eases. Focus sharpens. Hope settles deeper here, not as excitement, but as trust. Trust in your capacity to respond intelligently. Trust in your ability to recalibrate. Trust that you don't need to rush because direction is already set. This trust changes how you experience time. Waiting becomes preparation. Silence becomes strategy. Now let the mystery return again. What if the reason this message feels layered is because your life itself is entering a layered phase? No longer simple wins or losses. More nuance. More choice. More responsibility. That complexity is not a burden. It's a sign of expansion. Here is the revelation that reframes risk entirely. The safest path is not the one with the fewest unknowns. It's the one where your skills, values, and curiosity intersect. That intersection creates resilience. When challenges appear, you don't freeze, you engage. That engagement is the real advantage. Notice the emotional wave calming once more. This is integration happening in real time. Understanding is no longer theoretical. It's beginning to guide how you think, even as you listen. That's the signal that something has shifted for good. Before this part closes, anchor this final insight. You don't need certainty to move forward. You need coherence. When your thinking, actions, and values align, movement feels natural, even when the path isn't fully visible. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Stay still for a moment. Before meaning settles, something subtle just aligned. You can sense it. The question that followed you through the last part is ready to resolve. We spoke about coherence, about moving without certainty yet without chaos. Now this section reveals why that way of living feels lighter, and why it quietly changes everything. Recall the lingering mystery. If coherence replaces certainty, what anchors you when outcomes are unknown? Here is the first reveal. Anchors are not predictions. Anchors are principles. When principles guide you, decisions stop draining energy. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because principles don't expire when conditions change. Most people rely on motivation to move. Visionaries rely on orientation. Orientation answers one question consistently: does this move me closer to who I intend to become? When that answer is clear, hesitation fades. This moment may explain what you've been sensing when choices felt simpler even without full information. Feel the tension rise briefly, because principles demand integrity. They require you to act the same when no one is watching. But notice what follows that tension. Relief. Because integrity removes the mental friction of pretending. You no longer need to manage appearances. You only need to manage alignment. Here comes the turning point. The future does not reward those who chase reassurance. It rewards those who build internal reference points. When your standards come from within, external noise loses its authority. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't derail you. Stability forms. Another reveal unfolds now. Progress accelerates when you stop asking, "Is this safe?" and start asking, "Is this consistent?" Consistency compounds. Safety plateaus. This shift doesn't make you reckless. It makes you deliberate. You move with intent instead of impulse. Stay with this. You'll understand at the end why this message keeps narrowing toward simplicity. Complexity consumes energy. Simplicity directs it. When your thinking simplifies, your actions become more precise. Precision creates momentum without strain. Hope rises again here, not as excitement, but as assurance. Because when principles guide you, regret loses power. Even mistakes become aligned experiences instead of detours. You don't waste them. You integrate them. That integration builds wisdom faster than success alone ever could. Now let the mystery return gently. What if the reason you're hearing this now is because a season of external validation is ending? Not because you failed, but because you outgrew it. The next phase requires internal confirmation, quiet confidence, self-trust that doesn't need constant reinforcement. Here is the revelation that reframes the entire journey. The real message was never about changing your life overnight. It was about changing how you evaluate your life moment by moment. When evaluation shifts, behavior follows naturally. You stop forcing change and start allowing evolution. Notice how the emotional wave settles into calm clarity. That's not the absence of ambition. It's ambition with direction. Focused, sustainable, capable of lasting longer than bursts of intensity. Before this part closes, anchor this insight firmly. You don't need to control outcomes to live effectively. You need principles you're willing to honor consistently. When you do, the future becomes less intimidating and more collaborative. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this section most of all, because what opens now settles the tension you've been carrying without naming. Notice how your attention sharpens the moment these words land. That's the recall. The lingering question from before was about evaluation, how you measure your life moment by moment. This part reveals why that measurement quietly determines everything that follows. Here is the first reveal. Evaluation shapes emotion before emotion shapes action. When you judge your progress against noise, pressure rises. When you judge it against principles, calm returns. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because calm is not the absence of ambition, it's the environment ambition needs to mature. Most people confuse urgency with importance. Visionaries separate them. Urgency shouts. Importance persists. This moment may explain what you've been sensing when loud demands lost their pull and quieter priorities gained weight. Your attention was recalibrating. That recalibration is not accidental. It's adaptive. Feel the tension lift slightly here. Because once importance is clear, you don't need to chase motivation. You need to protect conditions. Conditions for focus. Conditions for learning. Conditions for recovery. This is how progress becomes repeatable instead of exhausting. Here comes the turning point. The future doesn't belong to those who react fastest. It belongs to those who respond best. Response requires space. Space requires boundaries. Boundaries are not limitations, they are design choices. When you choose your boundaries, your time starts working for you instead of against you. Another micro reveal surfaces now. Self-trust is not confidence in outcomes. It's confidence in process. When you trust your process, setbacks lose their sting. You don't spiral. You iterate. You don't retreat. You refine. This is why some people grow calmer as challenges increase. Their system holds. Stay present. You'll understand at the end why this message keeps returning to design language. Lives are not found. They are built. Built through decisions repeated when no one is applauding. Built through patience applied where shortcuts once tempted you. Hope deepens here, not as optimism, but as stability. Because stability means you don't need constant reassurance to continue. You can move quietly, consistently, with enough conviction to let results arrive on their own schedule. Now, let the mystery return again. What if the final shift ahead of you is not external progress, but internal permission? Permission to move at your pace. Permission to prioritize depth over display. Permission to trust that slow, deliberate construction outlasts fast attention. Here is the revelation that reframes everything once more. The message you've been receiving is not urging you forward, it's grounding you where you are. From that ground, movement becomes intelligent, sustainable, hard to shake. This is how long arcs are won. Notice the emotional wave settling into clarity. That clarity is not loud. It doesn't need to be. It feels like knowing where to place your next step without needing the whole map. Before this part closes, anchor this truth gently. When you design your days with intention, your future stops feeling uncertain and starts feeling cooperative. You don't force it. You partner with it. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Wait. Before you move forward, notice the quiet certainty settling in. That feeling is not excitement. It's recognition. You've been circling one question through the last part. If the future becomes cooperative when you design your days, what is the unseen force that makes that cooperation real? This section brings that force into focus. Recall the idea we paused on, partnership with the future. Here is the first reveal. The future responds to signal, not intention alone. Signal is what you repeatedly demonstrate through action. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because consistency speaks louder than desire ever could. Most people announce what they want. Visionaries show what they are building. Signals compound quietly. They tell the world, and more importantly your own mind, what to prepare for. This moment may explain what you've been sensing when small routines suddenly felt meaningful, as if they were aligning something beyond today. Feel the tension rise just a little. Because signaling requires patience. Results don't appear immediately. But notice what follows that tension. Hope, steady, grounded hope. Because once the signal is clear, outcomes stop being random. They start arriving in sequence. Not instantly, but predictably. Here comes the turning point. The future doesn't negotiate with potential. It collaborates with evidence. Evidence is built through repetition. When you repeat aligned actions, confidence stops being an emotion and becomes a byproduct. You don't feel confident and then act. You act, and confidence emerges. Another micro reveal unfolds here. Momentum is created not by pushing harder, but by reducing friction. Friction lives in indecision, clutter, and divided focus. When those fall away, movement feels smoother without extra effort. This is why your recent desire to simplify wasn't withdrawal, it was preparation. Stay with this. You'll understand at the end why this message keeps emphasizing quiet construction over visible hustle. Visibility impresses briefly. Stability endures. The future favors what lasts. Hope deepens again, but it's subtle. Because once you understand signaling, impatience fades. You stop asking, when will it happen, and start asking, is my signal clear today? That question gives you immediate control. Every day becomes useful. Now let the mystery return. What if the cooperation you're beginning to feel is actually your own mind aligning with itself? No longer arguing. No longer second, guessing every step. When internal conflict drops, energy consolidates. That consolidation feels like calm power. Here is the revelation that reframes effort entirely. Effort is not the enemy. Misaligned effort is. When effort points in the right direction, it energizes instead of depleting. You felt both versions before. You know the difference. This message is guiding you toward the sustainable one. Notice how the emotional wave settles into clarity again. This clarity doesn't demand urgency. It invites patience. Because patience is not waiting, it's trusting the process you're actively reinforcing. Before this part closes, anchor this insight firmly. Every small, aligned action is a message you send forward. The future listens carefully. It responds not to what you hope for, but to what you practice. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Hold this moment. Right before understanding locks in, something subtle rearranges itself. You can feel it. The signal you've been sending forward is now echoing back. Recall where we paused. The future responds to practice, not hope. This part reveals why that echo is beginning to sound familiar. Here is the first reveal. Alignment creates feedback loops. When your actions match your intentions, reality responds faster, not dramatically, but consistently. In the next few seconds, everything will connect, because consistency turns coincidence into pattern. And patterns are how progress becomes visible. Most people look for signs outside themselves. Visionaries recognize signs in repetition. What keeps showing up? What keeps working when distractions fade? This moment may explain what you've been sensing when similar opportunities, ideas, or conversations started appearing again, as if circling closer each time. Feel the tension rise gently here. Because recognizing patterns also means taking responsibility for them. If something keeps repeating, it's either being reinforced or being avoided. But notice what follows that tension. Relief. Because once you see the pattern, you can adjust it. Awareness restores choice. Here comes the turning point. The future does not surprise those who study their own behavior. Your habits are predictions in motion. They quietly forecast where you're headed. When you refine habits, you refine outcomes without force. This is why small changes feel disproportionately powerful once alignment is present. Another micro reveal unfolds now. Clarity is cumulative. It doesn't arrive as a single moment of insight. It stacks through lived evidence.